mistake that they made.
The panic in Washington has started. The deep state is losing control. The sound of shredders echoes through the marble halls of federal buildings as dawn breaks over Washington, D.C. Behind closed doors, career bureaucrats are frantically deleting files, making desperate phone calls, and searching online for criminal defense lawyers. This isn't fiction. It's happening right now. And if you want to understand what's really going on behind the scenes, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because what you're about to hear will shock you to your core. The numbers don't lie, and they paint a picture of absolute chaos within the federal government. More than 148,000 federal employees have already fled their positions, with some voluntarily taking early retirement packages, while others have been outright terminated. But this isn't just about job cuts. This is about the systematic dismantling of a shadow network that has operated within our government for decades. Picture this. It's February 2025, and internet search trends in the Washington, D.C. metro area suddenly spike for terms that would make any honest citizen's blood run cold. BleachBit, the same software used to wipe Hillary Clinton's servers, is being frantically searched by thousands of government employees. Wipe hard drive, offshore bank accounts, and criminal defense lawyer are trending like never before in the nation's capital. These aren't random searches by curious citizens. These are panic-driven queries by people who know they're in deep trouble. Federal bureaucrats who thought they were untouchable are now scrambling to cover their tracks as Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, closes in on decades of corruption and abuse. The mass exodus began almost immediately after Trump took office on January 20th, 2025. This administration offered what they called deferred resignation packages, essentially bribing federal workers to leave voluntarily by allowing them to keep full pay and benefits. Through September 2025, the response was overwhelming, with over 75,000 employees initially accepting the offer. But here's what makes this truly unprecedented. These weren't just random government workers looking for an easy way out. Intelligence sources suggest that many of those fleeing held key positions in agencies known for their resistance to conservative policies. The State Department, Justice Department, EPA, and various intelligence agencies saw some of their most entrenched personnel suddenly decide that early retirement looked very appealing. What's happening goes far beyond normal political transitions. In previous administrations, there might be a few hundred political appointees who leave when power changes hands. But we're talking about nearly 150,000 people, career civil servants who were supposed to serve regardless of which party held power. The sheer scale suggests something much deeper was at play. The digital evidence of panic is perhaps the most telling. Cybersecurity experts monitoring internet traffic patterns in the DC area report unprecedented spikes in searches related to data destruction and evidence concealment. Government employees are literally Googling how to permanently delete files and can FBI recover deleted data from their work computers. One particularly revealing trend shows massive increases in searches for Fifth Amendment rights and federal whistleblower protection. This suggests that many government employees are either preparing to invoke their right against self-incrimination or are considering coming forward with information about illegal activities they witnessed. The financial aspect of this collapse is equally stunning. USAID, which many researchers have long suspected of being a slush fund for deep state operations, has seen its funding dramatically reduced. Hundreds of non-governmental organizations that were previously receiving millions in federal grants are suddenly finding their cash flow cut off. These NGOs weren't just charity organizations. Many served as fronts for political operations, money laundering schemes, and influence peddling networks that stretched across the globe. With their funding disappearing overnight, many are being forced to shut down operations that have existed for decades. The panic isn't limited to mid-level bureaucrats. High-ranking officials who thought they were immune to political changes are suddenly finding themselves under intense scrutiny. Internal documents suggest that some agency heads have been secretly meeting with private attorneys, discussing potential criminal liability for actions taken during previous administrations. What makes this situation particularly explosive is the speed at which it's happening. Previous efforts to reform the federal bureaucracy moved at a glacial pace, allowing entrenched interests time to regroup and resist. But Trump's approach this time has been swift and ruthless, catching the deep state completely off guard. the legal challenges are already beginning. Federal employee unions have filed multiple lawsuits claiming that the mass layoffs are illegal, arguing that Congress sets funding levels that provide both a ceiling and a floor for government spending. They claim that reducing federal employment below congressionally mandated levels amounts to illegally impounding funds. But these legal challenges may be too little, too late. Court cases take months or years to resolve, and in the meantime, the systematic dismantling of the administrative state continues at breakneck speed. Every day that passes sees more resignations, more documents destroyed, and more evidence of the panic spreading through government ranks. The international implications are also becoming clear. Foreign intelligence services that had cultivated relationships with deep state operatives over decades are suddenly finding their sources of information and influence disappearing. Diplomatic cables obtained through FOIA requests show foreign governments expressing concern about their ability to maintain back-channel communications with the U.S. government. Perhaps most revealing is what's happening to the government's ability to resist conservative policies. Previous Republican administrations often found themselves frustrated by bureaucratic resistance. Policies would be announced, but somehow never implemented, or would be implemented in ways that undermine their effectiveness. This time is different. With career bureaucrats fleeing in droves and being replaced by political appointees loyal to the Trump agenda, resistance has largely collapsed. Environmental regulations are being rolled back at record speed. Immigration enforcement is being dramatically increased, and federal agencies are actually following presidential directives instead of slow-walking them. The mainstream media has been largely silent about the true scope of what's happening. They report on individual layoffs or policy changes, but refuse to connect the dots and show the bigger picture. This isn't surprising, given that many journalists have been dependent on deep state leaks for their stories for years. Social media is where the real story is being told. Federal employees are anonymously sharing their experiences of panic and chaos within their agencies. Stories of supervisors suddenly disappearing, entire departments being shuttered overnight, and years of work being literally shredded to avoid scrutiny. One particularly chilling account comes from an anonymous EPA employee who described walking into work to find that his entire division had been eliminated. Security guards were already removing computers and filing cabinets, and employees were being escorted from the building within hours of receiving termination notices. The technology sector, which has long maintained cozy relationships with federal agencies, is also feeling the impact. Contracts worth billions of dollars are being canceled or not renewed, particularly those involving data collection and surveillance technologies that were used by the deep state to monitor American citizens. Silicon Valley executives, who once had direct lines to agency heads, are finding their calls going unanswered. The revolving door between tech companies and government positions has suddenly stopped spinning, leaving many corporate interests without their usual channels of influence. What we're witnessing is nothing less than the death throes of a system that has operated in the shadows for generations. The deep state isn't some conspiracy theory. It's a very real network of career bureaucrats, political operatives, and corporate interests that has wielded enormous power, regardless of which party officially controlled the government. For decades, this network operated with impunity, secure in the knowledge that political administrations come and go, but the bureaucracy is forever. They manipulated policies, leaked information to friendly journalists, and used their positions to advance personal and ideological agendas